we're now going to go over red flags that immediately tell you you do not want to work with this person or this organization. These are very important to be aware of because if you work with the wrong person, if you take someone on as a client and they are problematic, at the very least, they're going to cost you time and money and extra attention that you have to give them. At the worst, they could present legal problems for you in that they decide that they want to become litigious. And so then they start going after you or threatening you, and it's simply not worth taking them on as a client. And here I have a prime example of that in a sequence of emails that we are going to go through. I'm going to talk about the red flags, but just know before we start, if someone is giving you the impression that they are going to be problematic right away, then just imagine what it's going to be like when you take them on as a client and you have to work through this. Another indicator that there's a problem is when they keep telling you that they don't understand what's going on, and they, even if you explain it to them in very simple terms, they keep coming back to this emotional and or hysterical state where they're just constantly confused, and it doesn't matter what you explain to them. they're going to introduce um, they're going to introduce some level of confusion, or they're just going to make this a continual problem where they're not going to be satisfied. What you have to know is that some people don't actually want the right answer. They just want to be angry or mad at or upset. And so if you are aware of that, if there's any indication of that, you do not want to take that person or that organization on as a client. This will save you just save so much time, so much not as much money, potentially money if they become like a real, like a formal problem, but just so much time and energy will be saved when you just close the door to these clients and only work with the clients that understand. And when you explain something to them, they grasp it. And it's not to say that everyone has to understand everything exactly, but as I go through this email sequence, we're going to see that this person is emotional and they're not actually looking to understand what's going on here. And so let's go ahead and read through some of these excerpts. So this is my initial reply to them reaching out to me. Thanks so much for reaching out. We'd love to help with accessibility. For the scope below, an audit would cost $1,700 and remediation would cost $5,800. And then I just continue on and I explain everything, and then invite them to have a Zoom meeting where we can have a call. And so let's now go to the next email. I wanted to set that because this is what I told them initially after they emailed me. Oh, it's the next tab. So then I get back a very long response. And when I say very long, this is taking up the whole page, but we're going to read through a few parts. This is so frustrating. This is how they start out. This is so frustrating. We have done everything we can to make the site compliant, but the opposing counsel only finds new things. So this is already something I keyed in on when I read this, is because, well, you say you've done everything, but what have you actually done? And then it continues. It's as if there's no way to make the site compliant. All right. So this is something that could potentially be a red flag. Maybe so, maybe not, because obviously many people are frustrated with what's going on. They're distraught. They're disappointed. They're angry, etc. So initially, they might state something like, "There's no way to make a site compliant," because they feel this way. So this can be rehabilitated, but we're going to watch for the reaction later. So it continues. Not only that, but I feel certain if I pay her the money she wants, then the case goes away? Question mark. How does that make the site more compliant than it already is? It just makes the case go away. Your fees for audit and remediation are more than she wants to settle. I would prefer to give the money to remediation over settling, but I realize that there's no guarantee the case will go away if remediate. So right here, I would prefer to give the money to remediation. That sounds reasonable over settling, but one thing to notice is that he's looking at this as an either or. Once the client is sued, then there's really not any coming back from that practically. Yes, if they really have this strong legal defense and they hire one of these really aggressive attorneys who is going to do a great job and they're going to find ways to get the case dismissed, but that's not reality for most clients. Most clients are going to end up settling, and so it's really not one or the other. This isn't something to tell a client, but this is just the practical reality that you need to be aware of. So we have here, he continues, we've been remediating. Our web builder has done extensive work to remediate, but he's young without a lot of experience, but plenty of ambition, and our website is very involved. Okay, so this tells you his frame of mind, but it also tells you he's delusional. Because when he says he's young and he's done extensive work, we don't know what that means. There's no basis to understand, well, how far along has he gone? He's young. That right there is him projecting like, look, we don't even know what we're doing. This guy just has done some stuff, probably added some alt text, and we think we're on our way. He continues, our restaurant is very involved. And then so the website is meant to reflect the complexity. So one thing I'll add about the website is it is somewhat complex, but it's also just the design was bad. And I think he thinks the design was like artistic, but it was actually bad. And there's a lot of work involved with the menu. So the menu was it was just an image captured. And even if you had added alt text to it, there's no way there would be too much. There were too many words. And I think this website owner wants it to have a certain design. And so that's a detachment from reality, and we'll get to that. But I let him know that, like, look, like, this menu is going to be some work, and it's not going to carry that same design as you have it. But let's continue on. We want to be compliant, of course, but no matter what we do, that that say we aren't compliant. My lawyer says there's likely not a compliant website on the planet. Obviously not true. When he's saying compliant, he's referring to WCAG conformance. Obviously not true. And again, here we have, like, it's delusion and exaggeration. And so here he has this, whoever this lawyer is, going along with it. But here we have, like, a just like a give up mentality. It's like, no matter what we do, we can't be compliant. Well, then, we come back to, what is your basis for stating that? What have you done? What makes you feel that you have exhausted accessibility and that you are finished, but they are coming back with more? So he continues. So we have filed a to dismiss on the ground of mootness because we fixed everything, or so we thought, before we are even served. So yeah, if the complaint was filed, again, it's already in place. So this is another detachment for reality. But we fixed everything, or so we thought. So there's the key. He's letting you know here, we didn't really. You didn't fix everything, and I mean, some people are so they're so not even close to understanding what is involved technically. And so I think here you have a classic case of that. I have a blind customer that does not have trouble with the website. Again, this is completely anecdotal. We have no basis for any type of accessibility. And then he says, I don't know what I'm asking you. So that's a potential red flag. So when you have someone that's rambling on, and then it gets to the point where, I don't even know what I'm saying, that is this could be a problem. And as we'll find out, it is. So I don't know what I'm asking you. I don't really have a question. I'm just frustrated because I want to fix the site, but I don't want to pay the settlement for an attorney that sued 50 popular local businesses on the same day in our same small town. Um, I mean, that's what it comes to, right? The settlement's there. And so if someone's rational, they understand this. They might be upset, right? I'm not saying, like, it's not warranted that you're upset, but, like, if someone is rational and they're logical, they're going to understand this is the reality of the situation. Like, I might be upset, but this is what is presented to me. Seems wrong, also wrong that it's not about compliance at all, but making money. This has been going on for a while and will continue through 2026. I understand why people settle, but I don't understand, after doing everything we know to do in an effort to be compliant, we would need to spend $7,400 your fees to maybe get closer to compliance. So they're actually downplaying the services with the maybe to get in compliance, and then $7,400 on your fees. So already they're resistant to the pricing, and it's just, with the pricing, it's there, right? Like, you can either complain about it. I mean, you can either accept it or not, but it's there. And we'll see more of this in a moment. And then he writes, we linked to a third-party delivery company, and they were having trouble with their site and saying it's our fault. I took away that link, so now we just give their phone number. It will mean less business, as instead of clicking a link, they must now call the delivery service or look up their website. I don't really care about that, but I understand that. He continues, I think the government should give us instruction how to make our site compliant so that we should successfully challenge this vexatious litigation. I'm sure you've seen this all before. I guess my question would be, how can you prove that your fees will keep us from paying double your fees and then their fees? So again, we get back to this mutually exclusive scenario where it's one or the other. It's not one or the other. The fees for the settlement are already gone. Practically, for 99+% of people, it's just a matter of how low you can get the settlement. But that's already gone. Like, once you're sued, that money's gone. So now, like, paying us fees is not going to stop that settlement. But we'll continue on. And then I wrote back. So this is a very, like, I don't usually write this long of extended of a reply, but I wanted to. What I was thinking was that here you have someone who doesn't understand what's happening. They're upset, and so let me go ahead and help them understand everything, every step along the way. And by the way, I did just have bullet points when I started out with this, but then I had AI go ahead and turn this into a paragraph, so I didn't really write this much. But this is what I was getting at in my bullet points. I said, I completely understand where you're coming from, and you have it right. We've seen this a lot. This is abusive serial litigation that has been going on for nearly a decade. Plaintiffs' lawyers are taking full advantage of the legal landscape, and 99.7% of the time, it isn't about the actual accessibility of the website, but about making a claim on the accessibility. When I say 99.7, I don't know the exact percentage, but occasionally we see there's actually a genuine lawsuit where someone is suing over accessibility. It really is because they've been ignored, or they've just been pushed to the side by whoever it is. And so occasionally we will see one of these that's actually not just the same type of complaint over and over again. I continue. To answer your question directly, I can't guarantee that hiring us eliminates the claim. The reality is settlement pays this lawyer and makes this case go away for the time being, but it doesn't resolve the technical issues. That means the next lawyer or the same one can come back with a new list of issues. Here I wrote about being sued twice. Remediation with proper documentation actually addresses the root problem and gives your defense attorney real evidence to work with, not just for this case, but for any future claims. Plaintiffs' lawyers always look to find ways to sue you, not the other way around. This is what so many website owners miss, is that plaintiffs' lawyers do not care. They're looking for ways to sue you. It's not about whether there's access. It's about whether there's a technical issue that they can cling on to. And then I continue, they don't always know exactly what they're claiming and don't always inspect the accuracy of their own claims, but you can refute, defend, and undermine their claims with professional services and documentation of accessibility. I'd also recommend user testing a recorded session of a professional who is blind using the site with assistive technology. That's strong, compelling evidence. On the topic of your web developer, accessibility is a very specialized subset of knowledge that even the best developers need to learn to implement correctly. So stopping here, this is what a lot of people misunderstand. They think if they hire their local web designer or somebody at a college, and they bring them in and they have them work on their website and they're the new tech person, that this is somehow going to work out for them. That's not the case, but they're trying to shortcut the system and they end up paying for it. But here I'm relaying that to him in so many words. Continuing on, there are nuanced technical aspects that are easy to miss, and it sounds like that's exactly what's happening here. Your developer may be ambitious and capable, but without formal training, there will very likely be issues that plaintiffs' lawyers can pull from to keep this cycle going. Yeah, so this can happen. You get sued, and then you say, well, we fix those issues, and then they'll come back with more issues. Again, this is the plaintiffs' lawyers looking for ways to sue. They may have issues they can pull from. Should you fix the initial ones and the next ones, etc. One idea worth raising with your defense attorney as part of any potential settlement discussion: ask the plaintiff to provide all of the issues they're concerned with. That way you're not chasing a moving target. On a blind customer that can access the site, plaintiffs' lawyers are very likely relying on technical WCAG issues, not necessarily practical accessibility usability. Those are two different things, and the technical issues are what plaintiffs' lawyers key in on. And then I provide a few additional thoughts. As a risk reduction measure, consider simplifying or removing some aspects of the website, at least for now. This can reduce cost as well. On the third-party delivery link, and then I talk about how you are very likely responsible for that because it's a part of your experience. And then I add, we take a meticulous approach to auditing and remediating, and we'll provide all documentation you need for evidence of accessibility. Let me know if I can assist with anything else. All right, so here's where we get to where we saw some of these past areas of concern come out as actual red flags. And so let's go to this final email. Here we start off with, and this isn't as long, since we remediated most of the issues, would you be willing to give us a lower price to look at our site and take care of remaining issues? Don't give discounts. Don't be in the process of giving discounts. Don't negotiate your prices. This is why you set your prices and you have them in place. You're not negotiating. You're not a flea market. Just whatever your price is, have your price be that. When you say a price, don't even indulge negotiation. Stay with your price, because if you start negotiating, you will negotiate yourself right out of business. And this is why it's so important to think about what prices you want to have. But once you state them, do not go back on them. So he's asking for a lower price to look at our website. And so that's already, it's not so much a red flag. I've had people negotiate, but that also tells you that it's potentially a problem. Like if they're trying to pay less, if they're trying to negotiate you down, it doesn't have to be a problem. It's not necessarily a red flag, but it is something that I'm aware of. Do we need to pay for an audit and remediation, or can you just give us remediation at a cost more at the 3K level? So, I mean, not even close to what I stated. And then he's trying to bypass an audit. Don't go for this. Don't start, if you know certain services are needed, don't start indulging this delusion on the part of him. So here we get to the end of this, where he is coming and trying to make this into some type of flea market negotiation. This doesn't end well for you. Even if you think this is acceptable and you take on the client, it's just a bad sign, because it tells you where they're coming from. And when their mindset is to try to take less and try to negotiate you down, and you don't want to deal with that later on. So here we get to the next paragraph. My main goal is to fix our site so that we are compliant. I can make a new site with only one page that is just text, but our restaurant is creative and we want that to be a part of our website. So here we have jumping to a polar extreme. So I recommended moving some pages, of which there are many on this website. And so there were 35 plus potential pages. And so what I suggested was, hey, let's simplify this. I didn't say it has to be in perpetuity, but limit this so that you lower the cost. I mean, this was an option for him to lower the cost. He wants to lower the cost. This is the way that you get clients with less of a budget. As if you tell them hey, they're telling you I can't afford this. It's well, why don't we just start with prioritizing these few pages and not try to have everything all in one? So here, not even accepting that, even though he had the option to pay less. So that is a definite red flag. He wants the branding along with it. So he wants everything, but he doesn't want to pay for it. We have already spent money to remediate with a young web developer not familiar with ADA compliance, but can you give us a better deal to complete the project and tighten things up? A few things left. So he's downplaying what's involved. He doesn't even know what's involved, right? If you're watching this video, you know what's involved. There's a lot of technical work. There's a lot of responsibility, and we need to make sure that there are no accessibility issues left, because we know that this website owner is going to be targeted again. They've already been on the radar. They're very likely going to be targeted again. Of course, we would always want to have no issues left, but we know that this is something where it's going to be looked at, and we have to be as detailed as possible, and how much work is involved in that. And you haven't even seen the website and just how much detail would need to go into this, especially with the menus. The menus were going to be so much work. And so he wants to say, just tighten a few things up. Well, he doesn't even know what that means. He doesn't. We can't just go in there and start to and ask the young web developer, hey, where did you leave off? Because we'll pick up from there. It doesn't work like that on our side. So this is irresponsible on his part, delusional once again, and so I mean, just huge red flag when there's just this disconnect and a lack of understanding on his part. And then he continues, your approach makes me wonder if maybe you are a part of ADA website remediation universe where the lawyers suing us and the remediation specialists are all in the same boat. What an expensive, litigious world, exclamation point. And this is, I mean, I was already done with him at this point. I probably would have responded, but this was the point where it was over. Like there's no coming back from this because here he's not just questioning the price, he's questioning the integrity. You can't have this. You can't start with this type of um, you can't start with this type of I don't even know what to refer to it as, like an integrity question, right? If someone's questioning your ability or your integrity, again, that's just signaling problems to come. You do not want this client. This is, he's stating that he doesn't know whether or not we're working together with the plaintiff's lawyer. I mean, just at this point, like I'm reading into his emails and I'm picking up like a hysterical, emotional person who is delusional and beyond, right? There's so many bad descriptors here that tell you you want nothing to do with this person because they will only bring problems to you going forward. So let's read that again because it's this is a good one. Like this tells you right here. It's like all you need to know. Your approach makes me wonder if maybe you are a part of the ADA website remediation universe where the lawyer is suing us and the remediation specialists are all in the same boat. That is such a problem. Such a problem. Also shows that he did not research anything. And if he believes this, or even he thinks there's a hint that he might believe this, we can't have it. We can't continue working because now this will always be something where it's ever present. So he's already tried to diminish the value of what we provide, and now he's questioning our integrity. And then he adds, "What an expensive litigious world." This guy is delusional, and this guy is it already in the email. We haven't even started. Like we haven't even moved to closer to an agreement, and we have this. And I don't know if this was a tactic by him to try to get the price down, but this was definitely like the end for me. And then it continues. You say you can't guarantee that our site will be free of compliance issues. Why is that? Well, I didn't say that actually. That's what he said. What I said was I can't guarantee that you won't get sued again. The reason I can't guarantee it is because I don't control the plaintiff's lawyers. That's not the same as compliance. And with ADA Title III, I like to be technically aligned. Technically, there's not anything that states that states how to make a website ADA compliant. So um, I'm always like when you read my writing, if you look into it, it's technically aligned. Even if it flows well, I'll say something like follows best practices for ADA compliance because with Title III again, we don't have a web rule like we do for Title II. So I said I can't guarantee that you won't get sued again. I don't control the plaintiff's lawyer. So again, here we just have like this guy wants there to be problems. Like he keeps introducing them after I've already explained them. Then he continues, if I spend thousands of dollars, why can't you be sure to assure us compliance? Uh, that's not it. That's not it. And so he's taken something really that I didn't say. He's gone on with his own delusion and he's just drawing conclusions from that. So then he ends, this whole thing makes my head spin. Please help me understand. No, I did not. I did not write him back. And I think this is another part of this video is like, do you write someone back? At what point do you stop? And I just stopped here because, you know, ultimately writing him back, what does that accomplish? If I'm not going to try to defend anything, I don't need to defend anything. He's what he's doing is he's really just imagining up his own conclusions and then spawning wild conclusions from that, right? So he has no underlying basis for what he's saying. He thinks that having a quote young web developer, we don't even know if this is his nephew who likes to work on Wix and drag and drop. We don't even know who this is, right? There's just no basis for anything what he's saying, and the price too. It's just like he's not appreciating the work that goes into it. And the quote I gave him was very fair. And at dropping the quote, it's like at some point, if he was slightly more street smart, if you don't pay enough, then what do you think you're actually getting? Because the remediation, I mean, we know that remediation projects can be involved. They can take a while and they usually go over rather than under, right? So usually aren't too many remediation projects where it's like, oh, we finished so much sooner than we thought because everything was so much easier than we thought. And with this website, especially with the menus, we would have to dissect them, take them down, build them back up. This was for several pages. A lot of them use the same templates, but this is a lot of red flags here in this last email. And we saw, what is it, foreshadowing in the emails beforehand. We just saw again this guy had a problem, and then he started making it a bigger problem, and then he starts lashing out at the person trying to help him. If the price is too much, I understand, but there's no reason to go off on this tangent and to start just making up stuff and making up conclusions. So this is what to look for when you're reading through emails. And I don't get a lot of these I don't get a lot of these emails, by the way. When I talk to people, sometimes they disagree with the price, sometimes they'll think it's too expensive. That's up to them to figure out. You can't. I think another important takeaway is you can't want something more than someone else wants it. And that's why you don't hear me talking too much about the business side and trying to convince people. I don't try to convince anybody of anything. I present the information. If they want it, they do. They want it, and if they don't, they don't. If he wants to go, he'll probably end up on Fiverr. He'll end up paying someone $500 and think he's got an ADA compliant website, and he'll get sued again. And that's just, that's how it goes. Some people just, they're not going to figure it out. You can tell there's a problem here, problem on his end, and so you don't want this client, and you don't want clients to introduce problems to you. You want clients who understand and are aware and are logical. If a client isn't fairly aligned with what's going on, and they're not flowing with you, then you're better off just not having them. It's not worth the money. You don't want a problematic client. And that's something I do an excellent job of, is I start filtering clients, and if they don't line up, then that's it. Now, I didn't outright reject this person. I'm just never going to write him back. And so maybe he'll write me back, and if he does, then I'll say something like, I don't know. I don't even know what I would say, but it would be something very quick, and just that, no, it's not. I mean, something along the lines of, it won't work out. I don't know what it would be, but there's no reason to engage this person, because engaging him is only going to waste your time, and it's only going to perpetuate the cycle, because you've already seen, I explained to him what was going on, and I even went above and beyond to write a long email to help him understand. And then now we're back at the same place. Please help me understand. No, no, no. Like, this has gone on way too long. And also, he could research this if he really wanted to, like, learn and understand what's going on. I mean, how much material is there out there on this? And it doesn't even have to be closely accurate material. Generally, people get sued over website accessibility. You can look at the prices online. You can ask AI about how much things would cost. It costs money to have developers who are skilled enough to do this work. And then the other part of this is that everyone has to make money on this. Like, you can't, these services are expensive because there's the work involved from specialists, the audit's necessary, the remediation is necessary, there's a lot of work that goes into remediation, the attention to detail is there, and then there's also the fact that I, as a company, have to make money too. I can't be offering these services at $0 markup, and so this person was completely unrealistic. So to now draw back into the general, when you have someone who does not understand, even after you've clearly explained everything in place, like the information, that's a red flag. When they lash out at you, that's another red flag. When they try to undermine you, that's a red flag. When they're complaining about your prices, that's a red flag. You don't want someone who's constantly complaining. There's relative understanding here, because I've had clients who were upset and they were frustrated, and they ended up being great clients. There was one lady I remember, she was sued. She ended up taking down her website, but she continually hired me for consultation, and she understood and she appreciated that I was bringing her information and helping her understand the reality and what she needed to know. And I even helped her provide her information with finding an attorney. So there's that side of that, right, where someone's upset and they're still a good client. But then there's this side of it where they have no they're not connected to reality. And so that's what you're looking for, is a flow with your client. If you sense that there's something amiss, if you sense that there's something wrong, then you usually want to go ahead and just leave that client out, because it will not be worth your time. It will not be worth the money, and you'll end up paying for it. It won't just be the services. It will be complaints. It will be questions. It will be never ending emails. This guy is going to be a problem with whoever he latches onto. So look out for red flag clients, because you do not want them.